everybody listening to this podcast has a unique gift. They came to this world to provide to the world. And sadly, most people never even discover what it is, much less use it as it could be used. She said, do you believe that? I said, I do. She said, okay, so you spent the first 22 years of our marriage being responsible and being someone who's making money so we're safe and warm and dry as a family. I want you to change all that. I want you to work for your heart. I want you to go after whatever you think would be most fulfilling to your heart. And if we lose the house in the Boulder Country Club, and we lose the Porsche, and we lose all the stuff, and we end up in a trailer, I'll still be there with you. So that great woman gave me the courage to temporarily try on looking at my purpose as more important than my dark story of my own mediocrity. So I thought, what would I do if I could do anything? Well, and forgive the language, Stacey, but I said I'd save the world and die anonymously without anyone knowing anything to do with it.
For those listening, this isn't about anything other than trying to help ourselves, first of all, and others live their best life. And sometimes we're so caught up in this busy life, in this busy world, and pursuing things that we always thought we should pursue based on how we were brought up or the way the world has programmed us to think about life and success and significance. And all of a sudden you get later in life like I am, and some things happen and you get a chance to stop and say, what really matters and what has really mattered. And nothing's been wasted to this point, but there's a future opportunity for myself and others that can be the best of life. And I think about that now. I really, truly, in my heart, Alan, I know you do as well, I believe the best of my life is ahead of me. And the best of times for others can be that as well. So I'm glad to be doing this with you. This is Stacey Harding. How are you today?
I'm great, Stacey. Glad to be here so that we can begin this new journey together for folks.
Well, I'm excited to be joining you in this effort to produce some podcasts that we hope to share with others about our own life and experience and some of the things that we think might be of value to others as they're considering their life. And just to start, I'll tell folks a little bit about myself. Again, Stacey Harding. I live in Denver, Colorado, and I grew up in Kansas and moved out here to be a part of the mortgage industry back in the early 90s, and have recently retired from that industry and started an organization called Hourglass Consulting Group, really intended to help others in a coaching and consulting environment to consider life and what is available as we consider how to live our best life. And Al, you and I have known each other now for about 25 to 30 years, although we really are just now getting to know each other really well. And so I'm anxious for folks to hear about you as well.
Well, and it's part of why I'm excited about doing a series of podcasts, is I think in a lot of ways, our relationship is emblematic of the possibility of what this podcast series could be for other people, because and by the way, I'm Al Killeen. I have a company called Integrative Mastery Programs, and long time in the mortgage industry, but 24 years now doing this work with leaders and significant people in all walks of life. Heavy focus in the mortgage world, but lots of industries. But well, you know what intrigues me about what we're doing here, Stacey, is you and I are sort of emblematic of, I think, most people's relationship in the world. There's this category of people you kind of know of. You know, I knew who you were. I knew your name. I knew people that you worked with, and some of them pretty well, and some not so well. And I had this sort of stereotype of you in my mind based on the limited information I had of my interface with you or what others said about you. And one of the things I've been so delighted by that sort of inspired why I wanted to do this podcast with you and have you come and create your own company and offer our products and services to people, to them through Hourglass, is you are so different from who I thought you would be based on my story about you in my mind for 25 years. So, which wasn't negative, but it was just so limited because you kind of meet people and you have you wave across the room, or you have a 5-minute conversation 15 years ago at a CMLA meeting or something. And out of that, that's your total data on this person. So you create stories around it. You hear a few things here and there, and pretty soon you put people into boxes. But I've been so impressed in this last 3 months or so that we've been doing some things together at how incredibly authentic and humble and honorable you are beyond the story I had about you before, which wasn't that you weren't those things. I just had no evidence of those things. And it's really been a joy to get to see that in so many ways you represent what's possible for all people, to not be stuck with the story others have about them or the story they have about themselves based out of their past.
Yes. Well, Al, it's been my honor and pleasure for us to get to know each other over the past 3 months. And I'm really, truly honored to be a representative of Integrative Mastery Programs and offering the value platforms that you've developed over all of these years. And I'm excited to share it with people because I think it's quite frankly, it's humbling to think of the life-changing experience that people can experience, which I have experienced with our time together, having gone through the program with you. And I know we're going to talk more about that today, but for those listening, this isn't about anything other than trying to help ourselves, first of all, and others live their best life. And sometimes we're so caught up in this busy life, in this busy world, and pursuing things that we always thought we should pursue based on how we were brought up or the way the world has kind of programmed us to think about life and success and significance. And all of a sudden you get later in life like I am, and some things happen and you get a chance to stop and say, what really matters and what has really mattered. And nothing's been wasted to this point, but there's a future opportunity for myself and others that can be the best of life. And I think about that now. I really, truly, in my heart, Alan, I know you do as well, I believe the best of my life is ahead of me. And the best of times for others can be that as well. So I'm glad to be doing this with you.
You know what I think would be really interesting for folks, Stacey, is if you could go back in time to your mindset when you decided it was time to exit the mortgage industry 3 months ago or whenever that was, and share with folks as transparently as you're comfortable sharing where you were at in your life and in your relationship with life and in your perspective on your future at that time, and what you changed in the course of the last 3 months and why you changed it, how you changed it, and what that perspective is now. Because I think in that journey of taking people from where we all find ourselves at times, I certainly have, lost, afraid, and not that you were this, but I've been lost, afraid, depressed, self-defeating, and completely pessimistic about the future without any real sense of it ever changing, and almost an indifference to it changing because I had given up on it so much, and then had it become such an opposite state that it represented to me the hope of changing the world to help people understand how to do that, which I personally think is the spirit of why we're doing these podcasts, is to help people rediscover a case for trusting themselves and trusting life by finding some power through new ways of looking at things. But if you could take people back to where were you, how did we get together, and what did you go through that now has you in a different place, if you are in a different place?
Yeah, Al, thanks. I'll be happy to do that. I probably have to go back a bit before 3 months ago, and it has to do with a lot of my life growing up in a small farming community in South Central Kansas, and growing up in a situation where my parents were divorced when I was very young, and being younger in my educational class, graduating high school at 17 and starting college at 17. I think what's always been true about my nature is I've always cared deeply about people, but I also had great degrees of fear and worry. And I shared a post recently about the idea of worry and what I've done to try to deal with that over my life. But one of the ways that I did it, Al, to protect myself is I projected an image that created non-worry and non-fear in I guess how maybe others would perceive me, in hopes that maybe I would be that too. And so I think that there was a great deal of my life, and maybe it served me okay or even well at times, because I was forced to kind of be something that maybe I wasn't even naturally that, but it allowed me to have some pretty good success in the mortgage industry for nearly 40 years as a executive sales leader and a coach and mentor and leader to others. And that was work that I loved and was passionate about, Al. And it's really was the foundation for where I'm at today. So although my job was to try to increase sales for the organizations I worked for, that wasn't what motivated me. It wasn't, let's see how much production or how much revenue we can generate. It was about how many relationships could I have deep, meaningful impact for. And that's what always fulfilled me. And, as a sales leader, you achieve a certain level of sales that might even be record setting, and you get to celebrate it for about 24 hours. And then the next month, you got to line up and do it again. But I did that year after year. And so as I've gotten later in my professional career, obviously I've always thought about, well, there's the ability to create success for myself and my family and those types of things. But will it really matter at the end? When I'm really done vocationally, can I look back and say that counted and it's going to last way beyond me? And I certainly think a lot of the work that was done in the mortgage industry from my effort will. But it's not as fulfilling to me as the idea of I can help people uncover their true passions and their true gifts, and live a life that is driven by their values, that is deep in their soul, and it's always going to be rooted in helping other people. And so for me, going through this process in the mortgage industry, achieving a level of success, I've had some loss along the way. I was married for 33 years, and unfortunately, that came to an end. Worked in one particular company for 24 years, and that came to an end. And now I find myself at a point where, what's next? Can I just go back and do the same things? And then someday say, okay, I'm done, I'm retired, and I love to play golf. Should I just play golf all the time? And now I know you've experienced this with others too, but I've watched people in my family, elderly people, that lose their purpose and passion later in life. And it's just their whole world shrinks. And it's a loss of purpose. It's a loss of self-worth and value, and understanding that we are all a gift to this world, and we are intertwined, and all of us can make a better world by living out our God-given talents and gifts. And what's happened for me, Al, is that that worry and fear that I was mentioning earlier dissipated. It's not that I don't have moments of, I wonder if I'm doing this, or I'll be helpful helping others or successful at that. But this idea that I'm fearful of taking certain risk in relationships and business, or the fear that I'm going to get to the end and say, gosh, I wasted it all, that's gone. And so I'm excited to give of myself and follow that passion, and see the potential in others that oftentimes they don't see in themselves.
How did you do that? How did you make that switch?
Well, I think some of it is sometimes you're kind of forced into making decisions. You have a life event like I've shared with you that you have to stop and evaluate, what's the price you want to pay for your decisions? Because when I've worked with people in the past, particularly salespeople, where they want to grow their business, and I've always asked the question is, what's the price you're willing to pay? And because you're going to sacrifice time, you're going to take more risk financially, your family may suffer, and all those things. And so for me, I was kind of forced into this situation to decide what's the path I need to take now. And what I was concerned about is not taking risk of doing this in my life. And so I had the great pleasure of going through your program for a couple of days. And it was a reaffirmation of everything that I've always thought was important to me in my life. And it gave me confidence to say, I can live out my true, authentic life and gifts and have no regrets, even though I know I'll still have challenges in life and I know I'll have some suffering along the way. But there won't be this doubt in me saying, gosh, I was given this gift of life from God. Did I use it in honor of that and in the service of other people? And I'm just confident that that is the case.
So there are countless podcasts out there people can listen to. There are countless coaches out there that people can, work with. And a lot of other coaches and coaching approaches and programs and all that. And you are very close with a number of other really high quality, very successful coaches. And then you decided to reach out and kick the tires on integrated mastery programs. And you not only decided to do it at a time that took great courage because you weren't working, and while you've been very successful, we don't, none of us want to drain the bank account unnecessarily. You don't want to waste money. And you kind of knew there was this thing out there and this guy out there that was doing this stuff. But why did you call and begin this journey that has now got you in a place where you have remembered the gift of your life and remembered how not to sell out your happiness with worry, but now believe in it so much and are so clearly living it that you're ready to help other people discover it? Why this particular program or process, Stacey?
Yeah, so Al, you mentioned that I've been involved with other coaching organizations and coaches, and to any of those folks that are listening, thank you. My life has been so blessed by my affiliation and experiences with those different coaching organizations, and truly, you know who you are if you're listening, and you know how much you've shaped my life, and I will be forever grateful for that. Anybody that continues to work with those organizations, I'm thrilled that they will. They'll help change their life. They'll help grow their business. They'll help them pursue success. And Al, for integrated mastery programs and Al Killeen, what attracted me to reach out to you in particular was that I wanted to discover. I didn't know at the time that I reached out to you whether this would be true or not, but I wanted to discover if IMP and Al Killeen was a place where I would fit naturally, being able to be myself, be authentic, non-pretentious, faults and all, and find someone that I could be affiliated with the truest, purest, unconditional loving relationship. And I can honestly say that you and I have that, Al. And we've known each other a long time, but we haven't. And it hasn't taken long because Al, I'm convinced that people can make changes in their lives if there's a couple of things going on. One, if you have a diagnosis like my father did when he developed emphysema in his 40s, that if you keep smoking, you're going to die. Well, that can be a motivator to change. And he did. Other people don't. There are people who have lung cancer that continue to smoke to their death. So you can either do it from the fear of that, or you can change because you see a vision that is just so clear to you that you can't help but go do it. And I would just call it its providence, that it's the divine, it's God, it's nature, if that's how you see the world of the universe, but it's speaking to your soul to say, this is the connection for you. And for me, your authentic life, Al, your stories, Al, you have had your share of suffering. And I know you've shared that openly with people. You've had it. But instead of letting that defeat you or to discourage you, you've used that to deepen your heart and intellect to a level that your soul is at peace with that, to the point where you can be beneficial in other people's lives. And so I saw that instantly in you. And I knew that about you already. Yeah, I've seen you do presentations over the years, and I knew you a little bit when we were both in the mortgage industry. But what's so awesome about being involved with you is there's no, pardon my abbreviation. There's no BS. You are who you are. And it allows people to trust that you don't have a hidden agenda. And not that any of the other coaching organizations out there do. I don't think that for a second. But for me, this is all about giving all of this wisdom and experience through successes and more through failures to other people. I think that's why we were put on this earth, is to serve others. And that's what brings great satisfaction to me. And I know it does for you. That's a long-winded answer to your question.
Well, you know, you've been very successful in your life, and you've won the race according to the standards of the world. You do know all these other fine coaches with various coaching approaches and protocols and all that. What is it about this process that you went through with IMP that was different than what you have experienced before, and that had you become so convinced that it would, you know, what I hear in your story, Stacey, is since you were a little kid in Kansas, and you know what you didn't share with folks was what a deeply spiritually convicted guy you are. You were going to be a minister, Campus Crusade for Christ, all that, and you ended up going into the worldly activities of becoming a successful businessman. But you clearly have this great commitment to understand life and what this thing called God is and how that interplays with all of it, and yet a very pragmatic relationship with the fact that you still got to pay bills and you got to have companies that operate effectively, and there's going to be problems along the way. And you've got obviously a great mind. You've got a great network of people, you know. You have kind of all the tools. You have all the tools. But something about the way this all came down over the last couple of months with this particular program seemed to fill in a piece that now had you decide you're not only going to go out and save the world with Hourglass Consulting to the extent that people access your services, but you're going to represent Integrative Mastery Programs as the vehicle for doing that. Why? What is it about that is worthy of you and what you're committed to?
Yeah, well, I think I can clearly explain that. There is no doubt that there are different types of coaching. There is incremental coaching, there's expansive coaching, and then there's what we would call transformative coaching or transformational. There's a difference in the word transformational and transformative. Transformative really means to empower someone to transform. Transformational means that it's occurred, right? And I can't cause anyone to be transformed. But I do think through the IMP programs and processes that we are empowering people to transform if they so choose to. So it's giving the transformative coaching ability. So for me, there are times where incremental and expansive coaching in business in particular are very important. You're trying to build a business and you need to create an economic engine that's consistent and reliable in services you provide. And you need to learn how to do that a little more or a little better or a little efficient. That kind of coaching is about doing. And again, there are appropriate times when that is important. And I need it in my life, in every area of my life where I need to do things better. I need to learn how to do things better. But then there's this transformative coaching, which is about being. And so that to me is what I think the differential is for IMP and Hourglass, is that we really want to focus on helping people be equipped and empowered to have the transformative or transformational life that they so desire. You can't help someone say this is the life you ought to have. That is way above our pay grade, right, Al?
Right.
That's not our job. That's between that individual and their God. And for me, my job with my God is to be an instrument to be able to help people be in a position to do that. And so I honestly think incremental and expansive coaching, if used inappropriately, is dangerous. Because what can happen is that somebody's already overtaxed in the balance of their life. anybody that knows me knows in my past mortgage life, I taught a monthly life planning course, and we would talk about the balance of work and lifetime, right? It's one thing to go say you're going to provide for your family, so you're going to work 80 hours a week, and your kids grow up not knowing, and that's not a healthy lifestyle, at least in my opinion. So I do think that there's some times where that's dangerous, where we say, well, just do more.
Mm.
And as a result of that, it gets us further away from being perhaps what we are by nature, by God gifted to be. So I think for me, the integrated mastery programs is about being who you desire to be, who you think you were created to be, and how do you maximize this time that you have on this earth. That's really where the foundation of the term hourglass came from. My little company was the idea that, when we are born, we are all kind of like given this hourglass full of sand, and some of it dissipates faster than others. We don't know when that sand's going to be gone. But oftentimes in our life, we think it's unlimited and it's going to last forever. And all of us have experienced loss of loved ones and friends, so we know that not to be true. But for me, I want to help people, and I know you do, help them be the best they can be for their desired future outcomes.
Yeah, that's beautiful. As you were speaking, it dawns on me there are probably a few key concepts for people that aren't familiar with you or I that happen to run across this podcast to understand. It's what exactly is integrated mastery programs? Why is it different? How did it come about? And what are some of the key components that make it different? And does it work? Is it effective? My experience and opinion is that Integrated Mastery Programs was actually born out of a trauma. I had pursued a number of careers, primarily mortgage lending, but I'd been a pharmaceutical salesman, I've been a stockbroker, and I've been in mortgages forever, and had a lot of different positions, and started a company back in 1990 with a partner. And we built it up, and it wasn't a big company, but it was a very qualitative company that was doing, I would call us sort of a small IMB. So, it was fine. We ended up with 4 partners and 6 branches and 50 employees and 22 loan officers and da da da. And it was a fine life, but we built it up. And I had an experience that I always like to, if I can just briefly tell a little bit about what this thing is, this IMP, if that's okay, if that works for you, Stacey.
Please.
I had an experience that a lot of my clients have heard called the drunken veil story. And it's important because it really sets up how integrated mastery came about and what is it within it that actually is effective in a world full of theoretical programs that are full of concept and they're inspirational and that people pay a lot of money often to go through that really don't make a change at the end of the day. That really just, and which in a way is harmful because the people that don't get the results that they hope they're going to have and they're told they're going to have end up getting more cynical about themselves and they lose confidence in their ability to even take a chance on the next thing that they need to do. So they stop growing. So in 1997, you go through this process when you're a part of this group called the Colorado Mortgage Lending Association, which I know you know. And you and I have both been blessed to be in the head of that organization at different times. My time was in 97, 98. And you have to go through the chairs of the board for 4 years, and then you're the person. And so you set up your own conference. So I set my conference up in 97, and you always go away to some fancy resort. We go to the Vail Cascade, like seems to happen most of the time. And there's a scene, and the listeners can relate to this if you're in business. You're going to go check in at a fancy hotel. You're going to get your little electronic card keys. You're going to go to the room. You're going to throw your bags in the room. You're going to head for the bar because that's where all of your network of friends are. And you're going to dance and drink and flirt and network like crazy. And so I'm down and I do all that. And I'm down at the bar, playing politician, shaking hands, kissing babies, that kind of Southern, hi, how you doing? Good to see you. Hi, how you doing? Good to see you. That whole thing. And I kind of worked my way through it all. And after 30 minutes, I think I paid enough dues. It's time to escape and go back to the condo. And be alone, which is my preference rather than being in crowds like that. And so I'm leaving, and Stacey, I have this life-changing experience. I think we meet angels along the way. I think, and we don't know they're angels until the experience is over, and they don't even necessarily know they're angels, but they're angels. They're vehicles of this thing we call God, divinity, the universe, the source. And I had that experience. So I'm leaving the Vail Cascade, and I'm in the little mud room kind of thing before you go outside. And there's a table there with a woman named Ann sitting there, and she used to work for me, and so I knew her. And she's with some old dude, and she waves me over, and I sit down, and I noticed this old guy is probably late 70s, and he's got 6 empty Scotch glasses lined up in front of him, and he looks like he's in the bag. So I figured she waved me over because she needed to be rescued. She's bored. So I sit down. She asked me, how you doing, Al? And so I do what we all do when you meet somebody you haven't seen in a while, this social dance we're scripted into, where I throw up all over with my story. How am I doing? Well, I got 3 partners, and she's of this and he's of that, and poor me, I'm just, I'm the long-suffering noble one amidst them, and trying to paint the picture, I'm sure, of my life. And she listens politely. The old guy, after 5 or 10 minutes, finally wakes up and hasn't said anything for now, but he opens his mouth and says, "Young man, I think you're the one." And I'm thinking, the one. He said, "The one I've been looking for 3 years." Now, let me just pause the story and tell everybody out there, you really want to have a killer line that has you want to have people instantly be intrigued by you. Just tell them they're the one you've been looking for. Now, they could imagine, well, we won't go down that rabbit hole, but you get my point. So this guy says this to me, and no one's ever said anything like that to me. So, of course, I'm intrigued, like, well, that could be good or bad. What? Okay. What are you talking about? I said, well, let me tell you what I'm talking about. Let me tell you, first of all, who I am. I'm the guy that Ann here, the woman's name, just went to work for. And it's the 3rd company I started from nothing and built up and sold to Wall Street over the last 15 years using the great secret of life. And as a result, I am richer than you can imagine. I've got a Learjet out here at the airport here in Eagle. I'll be taking it to my home in Aspen tonight. I've got a house in Italy. I've got more money than I could spend in 2 lifetimes. That's the good news. And I got it using the great secret of life. The bad news is that I only used it to create wealth. And as a result, I have 2 ex-wives I pay a lot of that money to. And I have 3 kids that want nothing to do with me. And now I'm an old man, and I have a number of diseases. I don't have that long left to go. And I realize in horror that I've blown it. I had this incredible gift of understanding life and having power within it, and I blew it because I just used it to make money. So I've been looking for 3 years for someone who I thought could use it in all areas of their life and take it to the world. And tonight, listening to you, I've decided you're that guy. All right, folks, how do you respond to that one? Say, wow, I guess I'm pretty good after all, whatever your story is. But of course, I don't believe him. I'm like, all right, what's this guy's game? What's he selling me? Is he just, what's his motivation, right? My cynic says it because I know in my mind, I'm nowhere near what he's talking about, but I'm curious because it's such a bizarre come on, if that's what it is a come on. I said, okay, all right, say more. He said, so would you like to know what the great secret of life is? I said, please. He said, all right. So I listened to you tell Ann your story, and you're doing what everybody's doing. It's like you get up in the morning and you're standing 6 inches in front of a plaster wall, and the wall's covered in red lights. And you've been trained by life to get up and push on the lights to make them go out. The lights are problems. You make them go out, and they go out. Some come back on after you push them out. And at the end of the day, the wall's 3/4 dark. You collapse into bed exhausted. You wake up the next morning. What's the wall done? I said, yeah, it's all lit up again. He said, yep. So you do it again that day and the next. And son, you will waste your life that way. Ouch. So here's the great secret of life, he said. He said, you have to turn that plaster wall full of red lights into a glass wall. And you have to look through that glass wall 3 years into the future. And you've got to see a place of inspiration. You've got to create your own heaven in your mind while on earth of what heaven would look like for your life on earth. and you have to keep your eye on them. And if you do, I promise you, somebody or something puts the lights out for you. Huh. Well, that was a different take on goals and all that shit. So I went back to my condo and I thought, this is different than a set a 30-day goal and track it every day and report to your boss whether you're doing all that. This was far less punitive, far less uh, of a behavioral management, far less of a 25 revolver to my head. I better do it or else. This was more of an invitation to possibility. And I thought, all right, so that was a really interesting interface. This guy's either crazy or he was an angel of the Lord. And I guess what I do with this will tell me which. So what do I do with it? First, let me consider the truth of the great secret of life. What would, if I looked forward for 3 years and I dreamt forward of what it is I would want, what would I want? I would like to have a job where I don't have to compromise, because I've spent a career compromising. I have done things for money. Now, it's not like mortgage lending isn't valuable. It is, but did I love every minute of it? Absolutely not. I mean, there were times that were so stressful. I had to walk in the door, not say hi to my wife or kids, go in, close the door, and collapse into bed with blinding headache and sleep till the next morning from the stress. There were times of great money being made and great fear out of a lack of money being made. There's a lot of things like every business, right? So I thought, well, what would I do if I could do anything and I couldn't fail? I would have a job where I get to help other people learn how to trust life, and in doing so, learn how to trust it more myself. I would have a job where I really merge together all the different belief systems from various religions into a universal common set of principles that are common to all those religions. And then I would tie that to the psychology of people to where it's pragmatically applicable in their life to where they can apply it. And I would also use my experience in business and life with pragmatic tools of how to actually relate to other people, how to have good families, how to have good marriages, how to have good parent-child relationships, how to have a successful career, how to be healthy, how to have a relationship with God, whatever you think God is, all of that. I'd put it all together into a unified field theory of human empowerment and uplift. And that's what I would do. But that's a dream. So I go back to my job. But honest to God, Stacey, over the next few months, magic happened, which is how I think, my opinion is how God works with us. Deepak Chopra in the Spontaneous Fulfillment of Desire book says coincidence is God's way of communicating with us. So all these coincidences started happening. I'd overhear people in an elevator bitching and moaning about how their company doesn't do much for them because it's a small company without a lot of money. I happen to be chairing a task force on affiliate relationships. It has to do with RESPA and Section 8 and all that that people don't need to worry about. And I had all these things come together that were kind of helping me see this possibility of what this thing could be. And so I dreamt up a program that was different in the mortgage industry. I called Shared Dream, of going into small to medium-sized employers with human resource benefits around educating their employees on financial matters. And I shared it with my employees, had 22 loan officers, most of them arms crossed. No, it's new. You prove it first. I had 6 of them that had the courage to do it with me. So I went home and made it up on my Mac, and we hit the road doing it. I had everything set up in the office where if people called as part of this program, they'd be recognized. We discounted services. Anyway, 3 years, we grew 93 strategic alliances with little companies, 50 employees at a plumbing company, to Celestial Seasonings and like that. We had 35,000 people in this program. It doubled the revenue of the company that attracted a buyer 3 years later of our company as part of a 5-company roll-up in Denver. They bought my company. Wow, that was great. That was magical. And now I'm running 2 of the 5 companies in a role doing this program. And a year into my 3-year contract, I get fired. They fire all the presidents of all the companies, me included, because these Tennessee bankers weren't used to the kind of money we were used to making. And so now, Stacey, brother, I'm sitting in my parking lot at sunset in February of 2000, and I'm feeling like the Wizard of Oz that had the curtain pulled back. Perhaps the listeners to the podcast can remember a time where you were stopped, your heart was stopped, your confidence was stopped. That was me. I'm in the parking lot at dusk, and I'm feeling like I've been found out. I spent my life here in successful fraudulence, and I've been wearing a suit of clothes that I hope the world was buying I suppose in hopes that eventually I would believe that the clothes fit, that I secretly knew they never did, and that I never felt like I had anything to really offer. I felt really just lucky at the end of the day with the success I had. So I think, well, it's time to do the right thing. So I went home and told my wife, which at that time we had been married 22 years. Now we're at 45. And at that time it was 22 years. I went home and I was standing in the kitchen with her and I said, Reese, you need to divorce me because I'm a loser and you deserve a winner. So you should take the boys. We had 2 kids. You should take the boys. We'll sell the house. We'll cash everything in. You get it all and you take them and go and find a winner because you deserve that. And clearly I'm not that. And that lovely woman had enough love and courage and a different view to say, all right, I've listened to all that. Do you still believe what's hanging down in our laundry room? And what she was referring to was a stained glass that we'd owned for 20 years that says this: your life is a gift from God. What you do with it is your gift back to God. That everybody has a unique something. Everybody listening to this podcast has a unique gift. They came to this world to provide to the world. And sadly, most people never even discover what it is, much less use it as it could be used. She said, do you believe that? I said, I do. She said, okay, so you spent the first 22 years of our marriage being responsible and being someone who's making money so we're safe and warm and dry as a family. I want you to change all that. I want you to work for your heart. I want you to go after whatever you think would be most fulfilling to your heart. And if we lose the house in the Boulder Country Club, and we lose the Porsche, and we lose all the stuff, and we end up in a trailer, I'll still be there with you. So that great woman gave me the courage to temporarily try on looking at my purpose as more important than my dark story of my own mediocrity. So I thought, what would I do if I could do anything? Well, and forgive the language, Stacey, but I said I'd save the fucking world and die anonymously without anyone knowing anything to do with it. Okay, go try to do that. I created integrated mastery programs out of 50 years in business, acumen of all these experiences in all sorts of roles, and the people I'd known that had been successful and unsuccessful, the tragedies I'd seen and been a part of in my own family life and in my friendships and in my travel through life, psychological principles that I've been aware of. I happen to be a reader, so I read 25 books at a time, and I gather a lot of that. So all that came into it. And I created this program out of a commitment to give any human being who goes through it the power of a do-over with the story they have in their life as to the case against themselves and why they better stop trying to be anything more than just a mediocre entity that's conning the world to get to the finish line and die and hopefully not be afraid when it happens, which is sadly how most people play it out, I think. I started integrated mastery programs as a commitment to God to try to give back gratitude for having been born and not having had yet discovered why I had been born. And honest to God, in this program, 23 years, 23,000 hours of coaching people, countless decades actually of information that's come to me and that I've learned from my clients about how life works, that is all going into improving the program. And then this guy comes along who's this icon in the mortgage industry, who is this guy that doesn't need to work, but is choosing to work. This guy who, frankly, has every reason to buy the story the world had about him in terms of what he accomplished and what a nice guy he is and how authentic and all that. And yet you come along and decide that this has enough value that you want to share with other people. So we're doing this first podcast. Yes, we're going to do more of them. We're going to talk about a lot of the key concepts in the program of the different levels of identity we can have and where power is found. We're going to talk about the power of a personalized vision and why it matters. But you come along and you are a living exemplification of the possibility for all humanity because you, brother Stacey, have given yourself a chance to move beyond that Wizard of Oz story that we all have. And therefore you are an exemplification of why I'm so grateful that I was led to trust my heart and pursue this passion so long ago, in hopes that when my time comes, which I'm clearly old, it's not going to be that far in the future. I really hope I can be on my deathbed and feel like it matters that I'd ever been born in the first place, because I was able to at least touch some other life in a way that had them shift their relationship with self-trust, with life, and with God. Overly long story as mine tend to be. I'm Irish, forgive me.
No forgiveness necessary. So for those of you listening or watching, you can clearly see why I have chosen to affiliate myself with this human being and leader, and how authentic and raw and real Al Killeen is. And everything about his organization and his program is about that. And, Al, the truth of the matter is, all of us are suffering at some level. And the sadness is, most of us do it alone. Particularly the more successful a person has been in the world's eyes. I honestly believe that's the folks that suffer the most, because as you and I have talked about, at 2 o'clock in the morning, if you're the leader of it or a CEO of an organization, and you have to have that positive outlook no matter what might be going on, particularly in our old industry today, in the mortgage industry, where there's been such a challenge of downturn of volume because of higher interest rates, and trying to make the right decisions, keeping your culture whole, loving the people that you have to let go because the economics aren't there to support it. It's a miserable experience for those leaders. And I would share that with anybody who's been displaced in that particular industry this year. Please don't for a second think that the leaders of those organizations made those choices without much anxiety and grief and sleepless nights. I promise you, all of them did. But to watch the ability to be authentic enough and honest to come back to a place where we can trust life. And that's what this is doing for me, Al, is that I'm trusting life now more than ever, because I love the experiences I've had in life. There has to be more than just that. And I know there is. And so thank you for your story. And thank you for Reese. If Reese hadn't encouraged you the way she did, I probably wouldn't be sitting here getting the journey that I'm getting, and that others perhaps might pursue after hearing some of this. But I know your heart, and mine is in the same place. You go through life with different soulmates, perhaps, and maybe some people believe there's just one soulmate. No, I got a soulmate here, and it is about soul. And I think that's the thing that's so beautiful about what you've done and what we're going to do together. Is this is about soul living, not ego identity living. And we'll do more of that in future podcasts, as you said. But Al, what else would we share with people today that we might encourage them as they consider moving on in their day today?
Well, these are called level 4 conversations. And we're going to go into what level 4 is, but really this podcast and this series of podcasts and our conversation really has 4 people in the room, 4 entities in the room. You, me, the listener, and God is the way I'm looking at it, right? And so whoever's listening to this is listening for their own reasons, but we have a lot of really important information to share with people that is going to be interwoven into our podcast. And it's called level 4 conversations, because there is this dimension that every human being can get to of being their level 4 that sadly I believe maybe 1 or 2% of people ever get to. But that's really what Integrated Mastery and Hourglass are about, is helping train people into understanding what level 4 is and how to get there, how to live from there. Because when you live from there, it really solves all the problems, because the fear goes away. And there's a whole story on where fear comes, fear of death, and you can go into all that. And how to have a sense of purpose and power and path in life. I did a program last week with a music producer in Nashville. Wonderful guy, incredible guy, and extremely well known and famous, has worked with all the famous stars. Just a great guy. But he didn't believe it. And then he went through 2 days, and you wouldn't recognize him after these 2 days, because he's forgotten, that I think the way most of us relate to ourselves in level 3, our ego self, is we essentially have arrows shot at us by circumstance that land at our feet, and we pick them up and stab ourselves with them over and over. And we sort of we build a case secretly of our own mediocrity because we feel like we have to be perfect. We have to be careful. We have to market ourselves to the world as being desirable, being nice, being attractive, being moral, whatever. But then we're alone with that person at 2 a.m. with our secret shame of our humanity. And we all have that humanity. So what I would sort of begin to close this first one with is this, Stacey. One of the things that annoys me personally is we live in a world, particularly in the age of the internet, where it feels to me, since I get 30 emails a day from people on LinkedIn that want to sell me something or want to save me or want to do something for me. And I get it. I don't blame them. I'm not mad at them because they're all trained to do that. But it actually annoys me that the whole world is busy trying to sell you something. I don't know about you or the folks listening, but I really don't like being sold. Because why? Because when I sense that I'm being sold, no matter how valuable something is that people want to give me, Stacey, I'm going to give you a 5-carat diamond, and all I want is a nickel in return. Right. What's wrong with a diamond? It is kind of, because why? Because when we're trying to be sold something, we automatically know that the salesperson has at least partially a motivation of what's in it for them. And frankly, we suspect that for most people, that's a higher motivation than whatever they say they're about for us. What I can tell the listeners absolutely authentically has been the secret to why Integrative Mastery has been successful in the top 3% in the world of business and life coaching programs is because I set out long ago recognizing I hate it, and so other people would hate it, so we're not going to do that. In fact, we're not going to do the things that annoy me. We're going to do the things that attract me. So instead of us selling anybody, we're not going to ask anybody to buy something as a result of listening to this podcast. What we are going to do, because we do have a business here that we want to have success and have clients, is we're going to have a different conversation. We're going to attract people to the futures that they may not even know are available to them, but would inspire them into moving out of their unconscious commitment to comfort being their highest priority to passion and purpose being their highest priority. And that we hear that a lot conceptually in different programs. The difference is within IMP and an hourglass that when anybody chooses and blesses us with working with us, it isn't a one and done thing where they're going to go through some speech or some 2-day program where they hear a bunch of stuff and then we walk away. Our coaching is actually us getting into the trenches with them and making sure that they experience what we've described. And because we have a formula called concept plus experience equals the ownership of truth. And I think most training programs and all don't do that. They're busy doing a volume thing. We aren't about a volume thing. We're about whoever hears this having their heart touched with the possibility. Maybe somebody listening to this today, Stacey, doesn't know you and I at all, and they're not in the mortgage business, which is fine because this is for everybody, business leaders, housewives, students, whatever. But I'm hoping, if nothing else, one person at least hears this today, and maybe they were starting to look at that bottle of pills. Maybe they were looking at that handgun in the drawer. Maybe they were giving up. Maybe they were thinking, bullshit. I hear this kind of crap all the time. It's never proven true. I will promise everybody listening to this that we are sincere in wanting whoever is in a position where they lack clarity, purpose, path, or even just feel a sense of angst and worry about life that they can't describe, reach out to Stacey or to myself, and let's just have a conversation. We're not going to have our hand out to say, pay us. We're going to have a conversation that you need to have about anything you need to have it about, because what I've found in 23,000 hours of coaching people is there's no subject, no topic that we haven't dealt with successfully and effectively. So today's a new beginning, not just for you and I, relevant podcast, Stacey, it's a new beginning for anybody listening to this that's willing to do one thing that is hard to do. I understand. Suspend your cynicism long enough to at least try on the fact that maybe what these two guys are doing is actually the answer I've been looking for. I'll let you close us here, Stace.
Yeah, Al, that is perfectly stated. And I just want to reiterate one or two points that Al just concluded with. And one is the spirit of this podcast is literally us serving you. We don't ask you for anything in return. If we never know you, talk to you, and that's what's best for you, that's okay. What we are hopeful is that there's something today and in future podcasts that you can take and apply in your mindset, your life, that improves your life. So I will ask one thing of you today. This living in this world is challenging from time to time. Please have unconditional positive regard for yourself and love yourself. Give yourself compassion. Don't judge yourself. It doesn't mean you can't improve. We all can. But that's what we'd ask from you today. Be kind to yourself. Al, I am honored, my friend, to be a part of the association and working with you. And I will just publicly state to you what we say every time. I love you, brother.
I love you too, brother. And I invite anybody listening to this, if you're in business, whether you're the CEO, a salesperson, or you're one of the quiet staff over in the corner that people aren't sure your name, you have validity as a life and you have things you're going through. We're for you. You may be that secret alcoholic housewife at home alone during the day that is wondering what her worth is because she's just a housewife. You're more than just a housewife, and it isn't just anyway to be a housewife. So we're for you. You're that confused, depressed college kid that's wondering what you're going to do in a world that you're constantly being told is ending, as we've been told since we were little, diving under the desk back in the 60s because of the bombs are going to come. We're for you. There isn't anybody who hears this that wouldn't be benefited by a conversation with us, whether it's about your organization and how to create a culture of zealot, meaning employees that basically are working for something more than the paycheck out of passion, or it's how to create a marriage that needs to be turned around and brought back together after drifting apart. Whatever you're dealing with, there's literally nothing outside of the scope of our conversations that we promise you couldn't be helpful. And then you get to decide whether to deploy it because it takes concept plus experience for you to own it. And we want you to own it. Thank you, all of our dear listeners, for tuning in. And we'll be doing more of these. I'm guessing one a week, but we'll do more of these. And any of you that have any desire to have particular topics addressed, maybe it's marriage, maybe it's what do I do in a faltering mortgage world? What do I do if I'm out of work? What do I do for a new career? What do I do when I hate my husband or I hate my kids or whatever your deal is? Whatever your deal is, you can reach us through the website of Integrative Mastery Programs or Hourglass Consulting. And you can reach me personally at, I'll give you probably ALK@integrativemasteryprograms.com or my phone number, 303-478-6344. Call me up. We'll have a conversation. Stacey, give them your contact information.
Yeah, you can reach me by email at Stacey, Stacey, at hourglasscg.com. And my direct line is 303-514-3677. Call us anytime, day or night. We will talk to you.
Yeah, actually call me during the day and Stacey at night because he's younger and he can.
That's fine.
Hey,
I'll
Stacey,
take those
thank
calls.
you, brother. This is wonderful. I love you. And listen, all the listeners out there, don't feel like you're just, kind of mice in the corner. We want to hear from you, and we want to hear what you'd like to hear about, because the secret sauce of why IMP has been successful and Hourglass is going to be hugely successful is we're not like the other guys. We aren't here, honestly, about us. We're successful because we're one of those unusual organizations that really is about you and what you need, whether there's anything in it for us or not. Bless you all. Please tune in next time. And if you like this podcast, as bizarre as it may seem, tell people about it and get them listening too, because and there's also a Facebook tribe called L4 Integrative Mastery Tribe. Feel free to reach out to me on that and join us and see some daily messages there. Thank you all. Stacey, love you, brother. Till next time.
Be well, be blessed. Thank you so much.
See you, brother.
Bye-bye.